Imagine this. It's 1945. World War II has just ended. Nations are celebrating peace, soldiers are returning home, and the world is finally starting to rebuild. But somewhere, deep inside the dense, steaming jungles of the Philippines, one man refuses to believe it's over. For him, surrender is the ultimate dishonor. This is the unbelievable true story of Hiroo Onoda, the Japanese soldier who kept fighting a war that had ended 29 years earlier. Hiroo Onoda was born in Japan in 1922. Like so many young men of his generation, he was raised on the core values of loyalty, duty, and absolute sacrifice for the emperor. When he was 20, he joined the Imperial Japanese Army and was trained as an elite intelligence officer. His training was brutal and comprehensive. He learned how to survive in the wild, how to gather information behind enemy lines, and how to wage relentless guerrilla warfare. In December 1944, with the war nearing its end, Onoda was sent to a small remote island called Lubang in the western Philippines. His mission was simple but absolute. Hold the island, gather intelligence, and never, ever surrender, no matter the circumstances. The final words of his commanding officer echoed in his mind, becoming his unbreakable creed. You must never give up. Even if the army collapses, you will continue your mission. He took those words to heart, not knowing they would define the next 3 decades of his life. In August 1945, Japan surrendered. The atomic bombs had decimated Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The emperor himself announced the end of the war in a historic radio broadcast, but Onoda never heard it. He and 3 other soldiers were hiding deep in the jungle, completely cut off from all communication with the outside world. When leaflets were dropped from American airplanes announcing, "The war is over, come out peacefully," Onoda and his men dismissed them as clever enemy propaganda. To them, it was just a trick to lure them into capture. In their minds, the war was still raging, and their duty was to fight on. So, they remained hidden, waiting for new orders that would never, ever come. For the next several years, Onoda and his small band of soldiers carved out a life in the wilderness. They built crude shelters from palm leaves, hunted bats and monkeys for food, and occasionally raided nearby farms for rice, which they saw as commandeering supplies from the enemy. Whenever they encountered local villagers, they saw them not as civilians, but as enemy spies or collaborators. They avoided all contact, often firing warning shots to keep people away. The jungle became their fortress and their prison. As the years stretched into a decade, the harsh reality of their situation began to take its toll. One by one, Onoda's comrades were lost. One surrendered in 1950. Another was killed in a shootout with local police in 1954. By 1972, after his last remaining companion was killed, Onoda was completely alone. By this point, the war had been over for 27 years. The world had moved on, but for Onoda, time stood still. He was a lone soldier, fighting a forgotten war. He meticulously cleaned his rifle every single day, keeping it in perfect working order. He patched his uniform, which was slowly rotting away in the tropical humidity. He continued to patrol the jungle, convinced he was still on an active mission. He even kept detailed notes and diaries, writing on tree bark and leaves, recording his intelligence gathering and observations. To the local villagers, he was a ghost, a legend of the jungle who refused to die. They would sometimes find his strange reports, or catch a fleeting glimpse of him in the forest, a phantom from a bygone era. Back in Japan, the government had long ago declared him legally dead. His own family, heartbroken, had held a funeral for him, placing his name on the family shrine. Yet Onoda lived on, guided by the same orders he had received in 1944, a testament to unwavering, if misguided, loyalty. His solitary war continued, a silent, one-man stand against the entire world. Then, in 1974, something truly unbelievable happened. A young Japanese adventurer named Norio Suzuki set out on a quest. He boldly told his friends, "I'm going to look for Lieutenant Onoda, a panda, and the abominable snowman in that order." It was a wild, almost absurd ambition. But against all odds, Suzuki actually found him. He tracked Onoda to his jungle hideout. As Suzuki approached, Onoda, ever the cautious soldier, immediately pointed his rifle at him. Suzuki didn't panic. He calmly spoke to the weathered soldier. "Lieutenant Onoda," he said, "the war is over. Japan lost. Everyone is waiting for you to come home." But Onoda, after nearly 30 years of believing otherwise, refused to accept the words of a stranger. His conditioning was too deep. He told Suzuki he would only stand down and surrender if his original commanding officer, the man who gave him his orders, came in person and officially relieved him of his duty. So, the Japanese government began an incredible search for that officer, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi. They found him, long retired, working quietly as a bookseller. They explained the extraordinary situation and flew him to Lubang Island, 30 years after he had last seen his young lieutenant. The reunion in the jungle was a scene straight out of a movie. The elderly Taniguchi, now a civilian, stood before his soldier, who was still clad in his tattered uniform. Taniguchi formally read out the order of surrender. "In accordance with the Imperial Command, the 14th Area Army has ceased all combat activity. The war is over. You are relieved of all duties." Hearing those words from the man who had sent him on his mission, Onoda's world finally shifted. After 29 long years, he finally accepted that his war had ended. He lowered his rifle, stood at attention, gave a sharp salute, and then, for the first time in decades, he wept silently. The man who fought a war long after it was over was finally, at last, going home. When Hiroo Onoda returned to Japan in 1974, he was a man out of time. The country he had left behind was gone, replaced by a futuristic world of skyscrapers, neon lights, and bustling traffic. The empire he swore to protect had transformed into a modern pacifist nation. His return sparked a national debate. Some praised him as the ultimate hero, a symbol of samurai-like loyalty and discipline. Others saw him as a tragic figure, a symbol of how blind obedience could trap a person in the past. But no one could deny his incredible endurance and the sheer power of his conviction. Feeling out of place in modern Japan, Onoda moved to Brazil for a time, seeking a quiet life as a cattle rancher. He eventually returned to Japan and, drawing from his decades of experience, started a nature and survival training camp for young people. He passed away in 2014 at the age of 91, still loyal, still proud, still the soldier who never surrendered. Hiroo Onoda's story is more than just a tale of war. It's a profound story about belief, honor, and the almost terrifying strength of human conviction. Even when the entire world insisted the fight was over, he held on to his mission for nearly 3 decades. In the end, his story proves that sometimes the hardest and longest battles aren't fought on the battlefield, but deep inside the human heart. If you were captivated by this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the most unbelievable and untold stories from history, from secret missions to forgotten heroes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.